Hey, aviation fans, ever thought about who makes sure those jet engines we hear roaring across the sky are actually, ready for takeoff?
It's kind of wild when you think about it, all the attention pilots and air traffic control get, but the folks on the ground making sure those engines are safe, they kind of fly under the radar.
Totally. But they're the unsung heroes, making sure our flights are smooth sailing, right? So today, we're doing a deep dive on a career that's all about, well, power, precision, and making sure those uh-oh moments stay far, far away from 30,000 feet. We're talking about aircraft engine testers.
And to give us the inside scoop, we're diving into the aircraft engine tester, the complete career guide by RoleCatcher.
Which is packed with insights, by the way. So first things first, what do these aircraft engine testers actually do?
Well, picture this. You walk into this massive lab, right? Tools everywhere, giant engine parts. It's like a mechanic's dream come true.
And probably way less greasy than you'd expect. I mean, there's definitely a hands-on aspect, but the RoleCatcher guide makes it clear. These days, it's just as much about high-tech equipment and data as it is about wrenches.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about slapping an engine together and hitting the gas. We're talking specialized test stands, computers tracking every tiny detail temperatures, fuel burn, even the tiniest vibrations. They're listening for, well, anything out of the ordinary.
Talk about meticulous.
Right.
The guide even mentions how even a tiny misalignment during testing can throw off the whole thing. So these folks need a serious eye for detail.
Think of it like fine-tuning a high-performance race car, except the stakes, if something goes wrong, are, well, a tad higher when it comes to airplanes.
No kidding. And these tests aren't a quick once-over either, right? They're running these engines through the ringer, simulating different altitudes, crazy weather, even those emergency scenarios you hope to never experience.
Exactly. It's about pushing those engines to the absolute limit, but in a controlled way. That's how they catch those tiny issues before they become, big problems at 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the why behind all of this. Passenger safety.
Couldn't agree more. But let's shift gears for a sec. We've talked about what they do, but what's it actually like to be an aircraft engine tester? What's the day-to-day feel of the job?
Well, remember those massive labs we talked about?
Yeah.
Yeah, those can be pretty noisy places to work. We're talking powerful engines going full throttle just a few feet away. Ear protection is non-negotiable.
Right. The RoleCatcher guide definitely emphasized that safety is paramount. This isn't your average desk job. It's heavy machinery and, depending on the testing, potentially hazardous materials.
Absolutely. Safety gear is a must in this field. Think steel-toed boots, fire-resistant clothing, maybe even respirators, depending on what they're working with.
It's not just you and the engine either. The guide stressed how collaborative the work is. You're often working side by side with engineers, technicians, even pilots sometimes, all laser focused on making sure those engines are A-OK.
It's a real team effort for sure. Everyone has a vital role, and communication is key because in the end, they're all working toward that same goal, getting those planes in the air safely.
So we've got this picture of a, well, loud, high stakes, but super collaborative environment. Sounds kind of exciting, right?
Yeah.
But is this career a good fit for you? Let's dive into the pros and cons because, like any job, it's not all sunshine and roses. So let's start with the good stuff, like what's in it for you?
Well, the RoleCatcher guide highlighted how aircraft engine testers can earn a pretty impressive salary, often hitting six figures. That's way more than your average skilled trade.
Not bad, right? And it makes sense. We're talking about incredibly complex machines, high stakes, and the demand for folks who really know their stuff. Yeah, that's only going up.
Right, you're dealing with some seriously cutting-edge tech in this field. Think laser measurement systems, advanced diagnostic software. It's not your grandfather's factory job, that's for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, there's a certain cool factor to it, right? Like you're working with these massive, powerful engines. It's got to be pretty awesome seeing those things up close and personal.
It really is. And you get to see the impact of your work firsthand. Every time a plane takes off, you know you had a part in making it happen.
Talk about job satisfaction.
No.
Okay, so it's not all sunshine and roses, though, right? The RoleCatcher guide definitely doesn't shy away from the challenges here. Like, responsibility is a given. We're talking about machines that, if something goes wrong, it's not good.
Exactly. You got to have a certain mental toughness for this job. You need to stay calm under pressure, make judgment calls based on what the data is telling you, sometimes with very little time to think.
And speaking of time, the guide mentioned those long hours, those tight deadlines, especially if an engine's acting up. Those can really throw a wrench in things.
Oh yeah, airlines need their planes in the air,
Yeah.
right? So if there's a critical engine that needs testing, you might be pulling an all-nighter to get it done. It's not always a 9 to 5, that's for sure.
And if you're someone who likes to, learn one thing and then coast, this might not be the field for you. The RoleCatcher guide really hammers on the whole continuous learning thing. Aviation tech, it never sits still.
Never. There are always new engine designs, new testing procedures, new regulations. It's a lot to keep up with,
So you've got to be a lifelong learner, constantly evolving.
which honestly is part of the excitement. There's always something new to discover to wrap your head around.
You're basically getting paid to stay on the cutting edge of aviation. Okay, so let's say someone listening is like, all right, this is it. This is the career for me. How do they actually become an aircraft engine tester? What's that path look like?
Well, the RoleCatcher guide lays out a pretty typical career progression, kind of a step-by-step thing. It usually starts with entry level, then you move to junior tester, and finally you reach senior aircraft engine tester.
So starting at the ground floor, the entry level, what can someone expect? Is it all like grunt work, getting coffee?
Not quite. You'll definitely be assisting the more experienced testers, but you're right there in the thick of things. Learning how to position engines on those test stands, getting familiar with all the tools and machinery, and of course, understanding the ins and outs of the different types of tests.
The guide mentions something called initial performance checks as a key responsibility at this level. What's that in a nutshell?
Basically, you're making sure the engine is running as it should before they move on to the more complex tests, like checking the oil pressure, fuel flow, those basic engine parameters, all using specialized equipment, of course. It's all about building a solid foundation.
Got it. So you're learning the ropes, proving you can handle things before you move up. What about that next step, that junior tester level? What changes there?
That's when you start getting more independence. You might be connecting the engines to the test stand yourself, maybe even doing some of those initial performance checks solo. And your understanding of those testing procedures, that deepens too. You're not just following the steps anymore, you're understanding the why behind them.
So you're going from like apprentice to journeyman. I like it. Okay, then there's that top rung, that senior aircraft engine tester. What does it take to reach those lofty heights?
Well, this is where all that experience you've racked up, it really comes into play. You're not just conducting tests at this point, you're leading teams, overseeing how all that data gets collected and analyzed. You might even be developing entirely new testing procedures, ways to make things more efficient, more accurate. You become the go-to expert for everything engine testing.
Wow, so you go from following the procedures to creating them. That's a heck of a career trajectory. It sounds like this field really gives you the chance to become a leader, to make your mark. But let's be real for a sec, it's not all about climbing that ladder. What about resources? Like, what can someone tap into to really dig into this field and see if it's the right fit?
The RoleCatcher guide actually highlighted some really great ones, like professional organizations. Those are gold mines of information. The Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE for short, that's a big one. They've got networking opportunities, tons of technical resources, and it's a chance to connect with other professionals, compare notes, that sort of thing.
Networking is so important no matter what you do. But what about certifications? Are there specific ones that would give someone an edge in this whole aircraft engine testing world?
Oh, absolutely. The FAA Airframe and Power Plant Certificate, they call it the AMP for short, that one's huge. It basically shows employers you've got a rock-solid understanding of aircraft mechanics and maintenance, which is, well, it's essential in this line of work.
And it's not just about the connections, right? It's about having that proof you know your stuff, which is where that AMP certificate comes in.
Exactly. It's like having that seal of approval.
Speaking of seals of approval, the RoleCatcher platform itself sounds super useful. They've got those interview tips, salary data, even job postings.
It's a gold mine if you're serious about this career path.
Yeah.
They even have like sample interview questions, the ones specific to aircraft engine testing.
Oh, wow. So you can walk in there feeling prepped and ready to go.
Exactly. No curveballs.
Love it. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive on aircraft engine testers, I gotta say, we've covered a ton.
We really have.
The tasks, that whole environment, the good, the bad, well, the loud, and of course, how to actually get started. So what stands out to you? Anything unexpected about these aircraft engine testers?
You know, I think it's that balance. It takes brains and, well, a bit of brawn too. You need that technical knowledge, but you also got to be hands-on, comfortable around those massive machines.
It's a good reminder that some of the most crucial jobs in aviation, they're not happening up in the air, but down here on the ground, making sure those incredible feats of engineering are actually, well, ready to fly.
Absolutely. And as you're thinking about your own path, right, ask yourself, what really gets you going? Is it those complex problems, working with cutting-edge tech? Knowing your work has a very real impact on Well, something as amazing as flight.
Those are some big questions, but hey, hopefully this deep dive gave you a much clearer picture of the whole aircraft engine testing world, and who knows, maybe it's the perfect fit for you. If you do take the leap, let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear about it. Until then, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.